Get started with our INDYCAR Grand Prix post-race press conference, joined now by Scott Dixon, driver of the number 9 PNC Bank Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing, finishing second in today's race. Scott, I know ultimately you led a lot of laps and we're hoping for that top spot on the podium, but a great effort for the team overall. Take us through your race.
Yeah, it was generally a pretty good day. We had some good pace. The start was a little tricky, kind of misjudged it with Felix, and actually the 60 car had a great start. So kind of just filed in line there and was just seeing how it was going to play out. The restart, we had that really good jump there, got both the 60 and the 10, kind of set our sail. The conditions were really tricky all day, but a lot of fun actually. I think it's always hard to tell with a circle like this, especially after the the kind of sealant they've put on some of the portions of the oval. How tough it's going to be once you start to get some moisture on there. But all in all, the Firestone red tyres, I never got to the blacks. Had a ton of grip and it was a lot of fun. So the second or third stint, I think there where we ran our double set of run reds, kind of fell off a bit of a cliff with those. And then once we got to our sticker set, we kind of set sailed again. But yeah, in the rain, I knew, with about 10 laps to go, I'm like, we're going to get hosed here. The front tires, we just didn't have, I don't know if we changed the front wing or whatever we did in that pit stop, but we just had no front grip and had to stop the car too much to really, keep time. And we were talking a lot about, whether it was going to be a time race or it was going to run the full distance, and obviously went the full distance. A lap or two shorter would have helped a lot. But congrats to Pagenaud. It's great to see him back in Victory Circle, and they did a fantastic job today, and had great speed at the end of the race. So yeah, bummer leading that many laps and coming up second.
So with the changing weather conditions and also the changing track surfaces between most of the road course, but then also the sealant on the oval, how tricky was this race compared to some of the other IndyCar Grand Prix we've seen so far?
Yeah, I think we had kind of around the right amount of moisture, to be honest. I think we were at the end of the last stint there, we were probably hoping that it rained a lot harder, just for being selfish for ourselves to help the front tires. But yeah, I think this track actually doesn't puddle, which is fantastic. And a lot of the street circuits that we go to, that's kind of one of our biggest concerns once we get aquaplaning and it becomes the limiting factor. But I think today, definitely the people that came out saw the conditions that we can race in and how fun it can be to watch if you stick through it. But yeah, it's always hard. I think Bordeaux, when we tested here and with the Honda manufactured day, had mentioned how slick the new portion of the track was, but to be honest, the grip is very high, even with a lot of rain that we had, and running the slick tires. I was kind of surprised how quick the cars still were. So it's tough to judge, and but all in all, it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Questions for Scott? Yes, Wolfgang.
Scott, you said you had no front grip. Was this the main reason you could not hold off Simon?
Yeah, I just couldn't turn. Even in the first gear corners, I was almost having to, stop the car to get it to rotate. I think it felt like I needed probably another 4 or 5 turns of front wing. It was just sometimes it kind of goes like that, depending on how your mechanical balance is, and a lot of the cars I think are very different. Some may have switched to a semi wet setup. I think for predictions going later on into the race, but yeah, we just. Whatever the balance was, man, we just couldn't get the car to turn. I had fantastic traction, but as you saw in all the slow speed corners, I just couldn't turn the car.
Talking to Chris Simmons, he thought that he was confident that the gap was big enough that you might be able to hold him off. Did you feel that way in the cockpit, or did you just feel it was a matter of time?
I think you always doubt it. So I think from, as I said, with 10 laps to go, I think, I knew I was kind of in trouble. And then the gap actually started to get, a bit bigger. I think, Harvey was having a similar issue with his, balance and struggling, and that was kind of holding Pagenaud back. But, they were giving me lap times, and you could see that, the 22 just had some pretty immense pace. So once I knew he got some clear track, and it really only took, once he got past Harvey, I think 2 laps before he was on top of us. So in a situation like that, we had it in the second stint or third stint on reds too, where you start to fall off, and it falls off really fast here. It's a momentum track, and it comes fast. So I knew pretty early that we were going to be struggling.
Mary?
Scott, you had quite a lead, number of second lead, maybe as much as 6 or so, with Simon after he passed Harvey. You had a lot more push to pass than he did. So even though you had that, I think Simon was out with maybe 3-4 laps to go at least, and yet he was catching you. So is it that you couldn't really use your push to pass to advantage because of the front wing grip issue?
No, I was, but again, the slow speed corners is where all the speed is, right? When you're doing a 40-mile-an-hour corner, and if he's rolling 5 miles an hour faster, the time gets chewed up really fast. It's 5 miles an hour when you're doing 160 on the straights, nowhere near the same amount. So I was trying to use it sporadically in spots to try and lessen the pain, but you knew it was coming. So it was one of those scenarios where you're either hoping for a yellow, or it was going to be a timed race and come up short by a couple of laps.
Well, it was certainly exciting, and with Simon, were you surprised how racy he was? You're both on the black tires. Do you think there was a difference in the engine performance at all that came into effect? Because even if you used the push to pass, he seemed to be right there.
The wet setup, I think we had a pretty big advantage on the slick tires, over the 22 for sure. The stint we got caught was when we ran the double run reds. We started with 9 laps on those. So, once we got to those sticker reds and that portion right before it rained, we kind of stretched out pretty easily and didn't really have to push. But when it comes to the rain, you kind of in the window or you're not. And they were, can be a multitude of different setup options that make that possible. Ultimately, it just, didn't play out.
Yes, Bruce.
Other than the momentum that is involved, this race doesn't translate to the next race much at all. In fact, same facility. How much does this race translate into the next road course race at Detroit? Oftentimes, that's a rain race too.
Yeah, not so much really. It's totally different. It's very low grip. It's a street course. Your ride heights are probably double what you run here. So it's I think in the IndyCar series right now, you need to be good in all areas and try and maximize on it. Which I think we've done a pretty good job this year. I think we're the only car actually to be in the Fast 7, Fast 6 every race. But days like this are the days you need to capitalize and try and get the win, and we didn't. So it's nice to have the performance and nice to run fast, but we're here to win, and if with our team, if we don't win, then it sucks. But we'll use this as motivation, and hopefully performance-wise we're strong in the next couple of weeks and can have a good shot at the 500.
Any other questions for Scott? Yes, sir.
Scott, this is your 3rd straight runner-up in this race. The last 2 was kind of one of those typical Penske dominant performance. This one, Simon only led 5 laps. Is this kind of one of those that's just tough to chew on, and that one that kind of got away?
I've been part of many of these, so it's you got to take them. There's days where you get a win and you never really knew it was coming. So you got to take the highs with the lows. But I think still finishing second and having a fairly dominant day. Something to be proud of, but yeah, again, these wins are harder and harder to get. So you can see even the expression with Simon, after getting that victory, it's hard to get them here right now, and it's good to see him back in victory lane. But yeah, it's I don't know, you just roll with it, man. If you kind of fall on both sides, and if you keep knocking on the door, eventually it's gonna open.
Scott, you mentioned how what the fans saw today, they should have had some fun with what they witnessed. The last 4 races prior to today, the driver in pole position has come away with the win. Like, can you just comment on, just go in a little more detail on what the fans actually saw today was something special?
Yeah, it was definitely a mix. I think you got every condition possible. I think you got cars on many different strategies. I think this track always plays well, I think, to great overtaking, just with the long straights, big braking zones, but also, I think you got to give a lot of credit to Firestone too. With the tire that they bring, the different performance levels between the primary and the alternate. They kind of cover every basis. So that's with an IndyCar race, you really never know who's going to win, and that's fun for the fans. It's fun for the drivers. Obviously, you would like a season where you could dominate and run away with it, but that's just not possible. The competition is so tight right now, and with the strategy and how they play it over here it's some days a bit frustrating, but many others it's a lot of fun too. So I think that's why our fan base is getting bigger and the numbers are going in the right direction, and we've should be proud of what we got here in the sport.
We'll take our last question for Scott from Bruce.
You were talking about how great it is to see a veteran like Simon get back in the victory lane, but how great is it for the series today to see a new driver like Jack Harvey and other young drivers like that went out there and put on a hell of a show?
Yeah, it's important. I think it's important, very important for the future of the sport. And Jack's done a fantastic job. I think bringing different sponsors to the series as well, and even his owner with Shank, he's a great person, very successful in many other forms of racing, and it's good to see them come over here. But it shows you the ability of any team, with the parts and pieces that everybody has. You can come here and run strong, and if you've got a good driver, you can make it happen. So it's I think that's why we've seen such a big influx from Europe and great drivers that have come through the ranks here in America too. But yeah, it's definitely a bright future.
Scott, congratulations. We'll see you in a few days.
Thank you.
You.